Hi, class. It is time now for our second project of the session, the rhetorical argument paper, and I wanted to make a quick video on explaining exactly what I want from this paper. This paper is to kind of teach you how to make an argument to a different audience. So for the most part, most of your papers in this class, I will be your audience, right? The teacher. However, in this case, it'll be different. So let's go through this here real quick so you kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. Goals. This assignment should help you analyze situations in which rhetoric comes into play and help you practice being aware of your audience. Paper requirements. For this paper, you must draw on your own experiences and stories. Think about a situation where you needed something from your audience: money, favors, tickets to a concert, etc. Draw from your own life experiences, something that happened to you in the past or that you observed. It does not have to be too personal, so please, no secrets. You will write using persuasive tactics and make more convincing arguments. How did you convince your parents or whomever your audience is going to be, because you will choose your audience, to buy you a new car or take you on a trip? What if you failed to convince them? What would you have done differently to change the outcome? Please also write about only one persuasive experience to keep it simple. Keep in mind that you will write this paper not to me, but to whomever you were trying to convince in your narrative. They will be your audience. This paper should be 3 to 4 pages in length, double spaced, with a works cited page. You must have at least 3 sources to back up your argument. So, what I'm asking you to do here is for you to think of your own experiences. Find a place and time where you might not have been able to convince someone to your point of view. What would you have done differently now that you know more about rhetoric, now that you know more about kairos, logos, decorum, all that stuff? How could you have done a better job of convincing them? Would you have needed to use more ethos, set up more credibility, right? Would you have had to use more emotions? Maybe a specific emotion would have been better to connect with them. And here's the thing though, you are doing this letter as if it's happening in the present. You are not telling me a story of what did happen. You're not going to write and say, oh, I wanted to get a dog, I didn't get a dog, this is what I should have done. No. What you're going to do instead is write a letter to your parents asking for a dog right now as if you were 10 again. Okay, so maybe in the past, a long time ago, when you were 10 years old, you wanted to ask for a dog. You didn't get it. Bummer. So now that you know more about rhetoric, think of taking yourself back in the past and then saying, okay, I'm back, I'm 10 again, but I know everything I know now about rhetoric and what I learned so far. What would I need to do to convince my parents to get me this dog? So your letter would start with, Dear Mom and Dad, this is why I want a dog, and then go on from there. Technical requirements: 3 to 4 pages, double space, Times New Roman font, 12-point font size, 3 sources: the name, English section, paper, project, and date on the upper left-hand side, title, works cited page, and MLA format, of course, as we've been practicing so far. And of course, this will also require peer reviews, just like before. It'll work exactly the same way. The mini portfolio is also a requirement for this, just like the previous one. It'll have a cover letter, a summary of peer comments, the rough draft, and the revised draft. Some things that you need to consider as you are going through this assignment. Be aware of your audience. You're choosing your audience. So why should they care about your plight? Why should they care about what you have to say, right? If you're asking for a friend, friend to take you somewhere, why should they care about that, right? Why should they take time out of their day to do that? And you would know. You will know best what kind of appeals to make to your audience, as you know your audience, or at least you should, to make a good rhetorical argument. What are the arguments you are making? Are they clear? If you were not successful in the past, think about what you would do differently. And this is very important. What is it that you know now about rhetoric that you could do differently to convince your audience? What rhetorical strategies did you employ? Could you have used more logos or pathos? Maybe both. What about ethos? What about decorum? What kind of languages should you use? By language, I mean decorum, right? What if it's to your friend, you'll probably have a more casual language, which is perfectly fine for this paper. It won't be as academic as the other ones because you wouldn't talk to your friend in that sense, right? You would be more laid back. You'd be able to use words that they would understand, that they would connect with, right? What about kairos? How should you organize your paper so that the correct timing has the most impact? So, what kind of evidence are you using to support your claims? Is it a source from your website? If so, how credible is it? Explain your source and introduce them to the reader naturally. So, one of the biggest things we're going to work on, especially in this paper and in the next paper, is introducing our sources and explaining how they're credible in your writing. So, you will say, this source backs up what I have to say, but it's not just a random source that I found on the web, it's a credible source, and this is how. Do not use the 5 rhetorical terms, i.e. logos, ethos, pathos, decorum, kairos, in your paper. Instead, your narrative should naturally have descriptions showing how to set up your credibility or try to receive empathy. Don't say things like, I am now going to try to use pathos to try and convince you, because that's going to do the opposite, right? No one says, I'm using ethos to try to set up my credibility. Just do it. Just say, this source backs up my argument. I know you're using credibility by the context of how you set your paper. So don't use the 5 rhetorical terms. You are going to be using them, sure, but you're not going to actually state that you're using them. Remember that you're trying to connect with your audience. Remember, that's what rhetoric is about, this connection. So how do you make your arguments that you make your readers listen to your points? If you can't connect with your audience, if you can't communicate and make that bond, you're not going to have a very good time trying to convince them to your side. So what is it that you can say and do to connect with them, right? So that is the second assignment. Let me show you a quick PowerPoint slide of an example I made here, just real quick, to kind of help you guys understand exactly what this should look like. And so this is something that really happened to me a long time ago when I was 16, 17, something, no, maybe 18, around there. This is around 2004, I want to say. And this is, so I am now doing the same thing you guys are doing. I am, of course, not 18 anymore, but I'm taking myself back in time and I'm making a letter as if I was 18. And I was trying to convince my dad about something. So here we go. Here's my short letter. It's not a full letter, just something to kind of help you understand how to get started with your own. So my audience is, of course, my father. And as such, I have a certain way of speaking to him that I know that would appeal to him. So, hello, Father. I learned how to drive when I was 15, but I did not receive my license until my last year of high school when I barely turned 18. Really, it was Elizabeth, my sister, more than anyone else, who urged me to get my license, and she was tired of riding the bus in the morning. If it were up to me, I would still be riding the bus to school. I say that because my father appreciates that sort of integrity, right? He appreciates that, hey, it's not that I don't want to drive, it's just that, I could save gas and money by just taking the bus to school. And again, this is how I'm appealing to my father. Anyway, I was very grateful to receive a car from you shortly after passing my exams, although I have to say I was a little disappointed in the quality of the car. Now, here what I'm trying to do is say, you know what? I got a car. It's fine. I'm a little disappointed, right? And it's going to go further on here in a bit, but for right now, I'm not trying to be, at least I'm not trying to come off as entitled, because I don't want to say, I deserve a better car. I want to say, hey, I'm happy for what I got. I'm a little disappointed about the quality, but I'm still grateful that I got something. Well, I figured my car was not the best because, for one, I didn't pay for it. You did. And again, I'm showing my appreciation. Second, it was my first car, so isn't everybody's first car supposed to be a little run down? And that's the idea, right? I'm like, well, I figure I didn't get such a good car because, well, everybody's first car should be a little run down. It's kind of more for practice, right? In case something happens to it, no big deal. You learn a little bit from it, right? So that's what I'm trying to set up, that connection with my father, right? I'm like, I understand where you're coming from, Dad. I really do. And this is how I'm showing you that I understand it. That's what I thought at first until Elizabeth got her license and you and Mom gave her a 2003 Mitsubishi Eclipse as her first car. This was back in 2004. And this is what the car looked like. And I added a picture here just so you guys could understand. Except instead of being hot red here, it was blue. So let me write that down again. A barely used 2003 Mitsubishi Eclipse. Look how awesome and new this car is. I got this, a 1986 Nissan Stanza. This is true, by the way. This is my first car back in 2003 and such. Dad, why do you favor your eldest daughter so and not your firstborn son? I am the more responsible driver and I have more experience. I give all of my siblings rides when they ask and I pick them up from school every day. Yet I look outside and see a shining red car reflecting the brilliance of the sun next to the dull, broken car that only reflects my spurny, teary-eyed face. Dad, did you know that it sputters every time I brake and doesn't even have safety features like power steering? That's dangerous. Power steering is a standard on all cars these days and can help drivers steer the car by augmenting the steering wheel. And then I cite Schultz 53. And then what I should do next is say Schultz is a mechanic who writes about how important certain parts of the car are, something like that, right? Setting up the credibility of Schultz. But as you can see here, this is how you would cite in a letter. And I know, for the most part, you don't cite stuff in letters, but this is an English class. I want to make sure you're still knowing how to cite and practice citations. As such, you want to include something like what I did here. But see what I'm doing here, right? I'm like, why is this injustice happening? And doing this shiny red car reflecting my spurny, teary-eyed face, right? And I'm a little cheeky there, right? But again, I'm talking to my father, and that's the idea. I'm trying to make a connection with him. I'm trying to show him that this is unfair and that, furthermore, it's unsafe, right? He should be worried about my safety if he's concerned, right? That might appeal to him more if he's concerned. So, also notice this is in the present tense. It's happening right now. This is ancient history for me, for sure. But this is happening right now for this assignment. Even if this happened a long time ago, put yourself back in that situation. You are however old you were back then, and you were trying to convince your audience that whoever you choose, that this is the right way to look at this situation. And you're trying to use ethos, logos, pathos, kairos, and decorum however you can to make that connection. And again, you can tell I'm using pathos here, right? You can tell I'm using ethos here with my citation. And you can tell I'm using kairos by the way I time the sections here. So that is assignment 2. Like always, let me know if you have any questions over this assignment or if you're having trouble starting this. I'm always available through email. Otherwise, good luck, and I will see you in my next video.